First of all, how popular is it? Second most popular move, although A6 is 8 times more popular, give or take, 7 times. And who's been playing it? ROGERS. Okay. He's at least a good player, but he lost. Let's go back in time, though. Let's go back to the earliest games with this and see, 1947. Okay. So, 1979, or the 70s, Oleg Reminishin is playing it. Reminishin was, of course, one of the world's best players. Not sure. Okay, it's a clever idea by Asmay Parashvili just to get the initiative. There was a difference in class back then, I'm sure. That would have been a very young Asmay Parashvili. Actually, Reminishin played last week in the Rilton Cup in Sweden. He was the 21st out of 22 Grandmasters in terms of rating. It was very sad to see that his rating was lower than Stephen Solomon's now, which is really sad for a world-class player. He played okay, nothing special. In that tournament, Australia's Rishi Sardana did well, and as I mentioned yesterday, he scored a Grandmaster norm in his next tournament. In fact, last night he increased that Grandmaster norm to a 10-game Grandmaster norm, and won the tournament because his co-leader went crazy in the last round, tried to beat a tailender and lost. So Sardana is outright winner of this Stockholm Grandmaster tournament and picks up the Grandmaster norm. So that's his second. He needs one more for the title, and he probably needs about 8 rating points as well. So, okay, this Asmay Parashvili game in a Ukraine Tajikistan match. Oh, someone used it. Okay, have we got any good players using it? Well, Ravi Kumar was actually one of the very serious early Indian players. I lost to him once at the Lloyds Bank tournament, though I blame myself actually, because during the opening and early middle game, he had a half chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken, that he was eating at the board. And his hands were getting greasier and greasier. And as he moved his pieces, I just didn't want to take any of them. And eventually, I just didn't take enough of them, and he beat me. I mean, if I'd been a bit older and more mature, I would have asked him to eat away from the board or something like that. But I just thought, he knows what he's doing. He's a chess professional and all that. It's certainly, it worked, but I wouldn't recommend it because you could get rebuked by the arbiter. So, okay, A4, B4. He was playing this stuff in 1982 with black. And here, still doesn't want to take the pawn because of bishop A6 and knight B4, and it already looks like it's a bit scary with knight C2 coming. And knight C2 not only attacks the rook, but also threatens the D4 pawn. And here, can he get the pawn back? If knight takes pawn, probably knight B6 doesn't do much. Knight C2 might. Knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, could win material. So he decides to do this, but now black is just dominating. 2 pawns up, and Ravi Kumar went on to win very nicely against Koshin. So, there were players around in India who were pretty good before and Ravi Kumar was one. He actually became a coach in the United Arab Emirates and good players. But okay, so B4 and now FD2, and not 2 moves that have scored best. To lose against Dubov, how did that happen? Knight BD2. And this is already close to equal, but it was blitz. So knight fd2, Cannon knows his open theory. Knight d5 stops bishop takes rook, knight takes and c5. And if we can get away with this, then the position is very, very comfortable. Notice that knight on b1 doesn't have so many easy squares. Takes, and apparently there's no good discovery. And this is still, oh, okay. What happened here? a5, bishop a6. Really? Why can't you play pawn takes knight? Bishop takes rook. Knight takes back. Queen b6, threatening the f2 pawn maybe. I wonder if this is okay. Let's see. Oh, rook c8 first. Okay, let's see if, okay, this has been played before. Let's double check if Cannon was starting to burn time or whether this was not a surprise at all. So ab6, he still used no time at all. Rook c8, queen b1, still no time at all. And now you can't move your rook because of bishop f2. Knight here. He spends 20 minutes on this. Well, hang on. Why would he play queen d1 quickly if that was so good? So rook c8 played. Now queen d1. Let's see. What did most people do play queen d1? And they do okay. So here, queen takes b6, and now knight b3 has done well. Okay. Any really good players? Only Meg Sudlu, and that was probably Blitz. Yep. So what has White got for the exchange here? Oh, it's two pieces. Is it, or is it two pieces for a rook? It's two bits for a rook. Now I can understand why he's playing. Okay. So knight b3 play. Bishop takes rook. Queen takes back. Pawn h6. Is that the main line? Still is. And black has a slightly better score there. Bishop f4. That's practically new. And now g5 was the only time this was played. This looks like it was a tournament in India. Yep, the Shervan Open. Rook here. What? Okay. Oh, what a nice idea. And black is super active and won the game. But black was a high-rated player, so all right. So let's see. G5 was played, so he really does know his theory, Ryder Testlin. So G5, knight C5. So he must have prepared this when he played bishop f4. Knight C5, queen takes, bishop here, queen C2. So as in the other game, black just wants knight e5, rook d8, and to try and play rook d1. He doesn't care about the A pawn, but he really cares about the B pawn, because that's the pawn that's restraining that knight. So it could be, yeah, that knight d2 is the best move, and that's what was played. Because even if black takes on b2, we will lose a7. So, but taking on b2 does stop rook a7 because of rook c1 probably. So it's all, although then white will get 4 pieces for queen and rook. Wow, a really weird imbalance. Though I've had that in a game before, and it wasn't easy to play the 4 pieces, I have to say. Oh no, hang on, it can't be 4 pieces, it's only 3. 3 pieces, rook takes, rook c1, rook takes, bishop takes. No, that's winning for black, I think. Yeah, it's only the 3 pieces. Oh, 3 pieces for a queen, but with a passport. Okay, so this is totally unclear. The computer's going to say zeros. Yep, you just know whatever complicated position you get, the computer's going to say zeros. It's like the Zoltan Ribley of chess. Zoltan Ribley was a Hungarian player who was notorious for making lots and lots and lots of draws, although he did have a win over Anatoly Karpov to his credit. But one famous interview with Ribley, went along the lines of, you know, you didn't have a great year this year. You lost 3 games. It's a bit unusual for you. And Ridley replied, well, why are we talking about that? Why don't we talk about the 5 games I won this year? And yeah, so yeah, he played a lot of draws. Yeah, and Stockfish 17 is a bit like that. Just wants everything to be peaceful. So Sterling Baker coming off a bad loss yesterday on board 1, a really complicated game where he had lots of chances. Looks like he's playing pretty well against what is a weird sort of dragon from the Queen D4 line. Okay, knight C6. And here, in the old days, everyone would play bishop B5, give up the bishops, play C4, knight C3, and so on. And it worked out pretty well. After bishop B5, I think the really annoying move for white is Queen D7, because if bishop takes knight, you take the pawn, and then your bishop goes to A6. Though after Queen D7, white can play something like knight C3, but a lot of those endgames turn out to be not bad at all for black due to the pair of bishops. Okay, but queen back and knight C3 doesn't look like the world's greatest anti-dragon setup. Knight D5 very quickly, no threat at all. Well, it's clearly preparation. Sterling Baker's main coach is Moulton Lee, the Australian Grandmaster, who's been living in Thailand for a while since the pandemic. And apparently he's given up his ambition to become a very strong Makrook player. Moulton Lee was born in Cambodia, and he left when he was about 4, but he did learn how to play Makrook, which is Thai chess that is basically only played in Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand, but it's incredibly close to original chess of 1500 years ago. It's got restricted queens like Chinese chess. It's got restricted bishops, but it's also got other characteristics. It doesn't have a river, for example, that you have in Chinese chess that makes Chinese chess modern. Doesn't have cannons. But anyway, his idea was there are weekend tournaments in Thailand with 25,000 US first prize. If he could become a good Thai chess player, he could clean up a lot more than he could win in a $3,000 Australian chess championship. But apparently he put some effort into it, but it just wasn't that transferable. I know Kramnik has tried to learn Makrook and played at a 2000 rated level. Moulton Lee got better than that, but not good enough to really earn well. So currently he's doing international chess coaching more than anything. Anyway, he's the coach of Sterling Baker, and since Moulton Lee was among the top 10 bullet players in the world when he was 13, he learned lots and lots of opening tricks, among other tricks, and so he's always got a funny little system that you can use, and this is the Queen D4 one, really out of fashion, and not playing Bishop B5. So I'm quite sure that Leo Kalina's on his own. I don't completely trust this system for white. It doesn't feel like you've got a good Sicilian here, but if black does take on D5 after pawn takes, well, you've got some prospects on the E file and also bishop E3, bishop D4 perhaps. If you take on F3, which is normal in a lot of these lines, white will take with the queen, and therefore you don't have to give away your bishop pair, and that doesn't ease the pressure either. So I can't believe white's actually threatening anything here. I mean, E5 doesn't look terribly scary. Shouldn't be scary. So knight D7 played, and that's quite common in lots of slow versions of the dragon, and now bishop G5. So you'd be happy playing rook E8 here, but it's a bit annoying that your queen's not totally free just to go to A5. So the other question is, if rook E8, you could run into 97 followed by queen d6 in some positions. So you have to be very careful about that sort of combination. Now, I don't think it is that great here because we haven't taken on f3, so a d7 knight is protected. But yeah, it could be a bit scary. Let's say it's white's move, black passes, let's say, knight takes, queen takes. This is hard to believe. f6. And we don't have anything scary here, I don't think. Yeah, so it's not threatened at the moment. But it might be threatened one day. And down to board 6, players only on 4 points. Harvey Zhu, he spent the whole tournament near the top of the standings. Now we have something a bit King's Indian-y, I think. Let's have a look. Yep, it's a King's Indian with g3. So rook e8, knight c3, bishop d7. Now there's one player in the world that really likes this system, and that's Harvey Zhu. He tried it at the Hong Kong Open just after Christmas. Didn't turn out too well. He tried it in the Oceania Junior. Didn't turn out too well, but he likes it. What can you say? It has some ideas, but yeah, in a lot of these systems, you'd rather have the bishop on g4. You'd rather have your knight on d7. So, but after e4, he's going e5. And now the question is, what does white do? Clearly, black's pieces aren't terribly well placed for this setup, but there is a chance that black might play pawn takes pawn on d4 and knight c6. And then you could semi-justify the whole thing. So d5 instead is trying to say the bishop's in the way of the knights, but after a5, knight a6, that knight's not bad. But the other advantage of d5 is that the rook on e8 is definitely on the wrong spot. So it needs to go back to f8 in order for f5 to happen. So a5, knight here. So with knight d3, you can threaten c5, you can threaten f4. It does look like a very flexible version. So rook f8, and Zafirakis is clearly prepared for this stuff. Rook f8 and a3. Thank you. So is b4 a threat? It looks like it is. Can we play a4? Probably not. Knight c5 after, he spent a long time on rook f8 and then 8 more minutes on knight c5. Take, f4. Knight back. So most of the time, black will get blown away with an f5 plan. Here, I'm not so sure. Knight d6, we can play queen d3. Then if we can get g4 in and g5, it should be very good. Okay, bishop e3, b6. So this is about as good as it gets for white. You've got all your pieces out. Black's on the back foot. Black has not played f5 yet. So do they think it's any good? 0. Gee. Okay, they want to play f5 though. Knight d6, queen d3. Then they say black should swap on f5 and play e4 as a pawn sack. Now that is quite surprising, but it's true. If you let white play g4, you're liable to get throttled. So it's not so good. So takes on e5. Already that looks suspicious, unless you can get your knight on c3 somewhere to attack that bishop. Bishop f4 is not doing anything. I can go queen e7. So bishop h6. And now the exchange sacrifice. Takes. Wow. I have to say, if I was annotating for a Soviet magazine in the 1950s, I would say black has a huge position because they really overrated these exchange sacrifices. Now that computers have turned up, we find that there are lots of e5, for example, sometime, let's say queen d3, a4, b3, knight b5, because you take with the bishop, and then you'd have your bishop and knight to fight against the two white square pieces. Now, maybe it's only equal, but perhaps it's better for black. Black has practically no winning chances here if the queens come off. But if you can use that bishop on e5 for an attack, that might mean h5, h4, for example. Maybe we put our queen on e7 and play h5. Or maybe we play king g7, h5, rook h8, something like that. If you get your opponent to play h4, then g3 is permanently weak. The white knight can go knight e2, knight f4, but it's really not going anywhere from there. So I wonder, is the computer still saying this is, ooh, h5, queen e7? The one I hadn't expected was g5. But I guess we've got all the light squares covered by that knight on d6. That is impressive. So the computer really rates this exchange sacrifice. I'm quite willing to accept that white has nothing to do at the moment. That's why I was thinking about h4 for white, king h2, bishop h3. Get rid of your bad bishop on g2. That may work. The computer's suggesting h5 or rook e8. Rook e8, I don't really like because there's very few circumstances in which I want to play bishop takes knight and grab the e pawn. That would just open up lines for white's rooks, and all you get is one pawn for the exchange. So I like to keep things as they are. I don't even want to play a4 here if I don't have to, because then after queen, well, there might be a queen c2 later, although c4 is very weak. And a queen c2 might get me needing to protect that. So for white, maybe it is rook b1 and b4 that's the best plan here. Now, Harvey Zhu is only 20 minutes behind on the clock now. Queen d2 took a bit of time. The two aren't so far apart, rated apart. They did play a draw in the last round of the Oceania Junior Under-20 division. And for Harvey Zhu, that wasn't a great result.
We have an exchange endgame that we've seen before. And Rysakov knew exactly what he was doing, putting his knight on d6. This is really not scary.
Knight h5 played. I wouldn't have thought knight g7 is a problem. Maybe white can play h3 and g4. Might be sensible. I don't know if black wants to put the knight on e4. It doesn't seem to do too much there. But all in all, yeah, shouldn't be too much of a problem for the youngster 15-year-olds from Sydney up against Melbourne's Suko G and Darryl Johansson. Okay, let's see if he can win 2 games in a row, which he hasn't done in this tournament. So the Grandmaster is playing a hedgehog opening, and I think he will be reasonably happy with what he's got. Now, the whole point of the hedgehog with black is you set up a spine of pawns along the 6th rank, so your opponent can never put any pieces on the 5th rank, and then you just maneuver until white runs out of things to do. And white usually runs out of things to do before black. So I think they got this one from an English opening. Yep, nothing happening, nothing happening. Yeah, he plays d6. Of course, we could play d5, but he actually wants a hedgehog line. So knight d7, finally white plays d4, and takes the queen in order to avoid the swap of light square bishops. And this position, white usually gets a slightly better version of it. By the way, if you play bishop a3 here, you're not actually winning the pawn because black can always play knight c5 and block everything. So you're not going to win that pawn on d6. And because the black knight is on d7 and not on c6, you're not going to have a knight d5 or a knight b5 that works. So that knight on c3 is well constrained. So knight c5. Now, what is he doing here? Is he going to go f4? Looks a bit on the dodgy side. Queen back, knight here. Rook d8. Yeah, Johansson said that it's very, very hard in the hedgehog to work out where to put your rooks. If the white queen was on e3, you'd probably put that rook on E8, because the main break here for black is D5 when white isn't looking. So B4 played first, knight here. Now B5, uncovering an attack on the D6 pawn, you just go back to C5. The best book on the hedgehog was not the 400-page effort by Shipov, but a book called Dynamic Chess Strategy by Mihai Suba, who was basically trying to explain that black was better in chess, that no matter what the opponent did, you could react to it and improve and make your position bulletproof. And in the hedgehog, he explained that white very, very quickly gets everything to an optimum position, and it's downhill from there. Whereas black always has a way to improve their position and maybe force some concessions. So here, for example, Queen E8. We're not threatening that D4 pawn yet, but maybe we can cause you some problems there. The other interesting move here is always D5, but you really want to wait until white's moved some pawns on the king side, because sometimes D5 will involve playing bishop C5 as a pin on the queen. So the knight on E3 is a bit unusual, but because white's played B4, you need extra protection on C4. Now, right now, it is very tempting to go knight E5 just to get white to play F4. And then maybe we go back to G6 and go H5, H4, and just soften you up on that side of the board. There was a famous Polagevsky versus Tatashnik game when Polagevsky was a top 6 player in the world, and Tatashnik was just a young Slovak, maybe not even a grandmaster, and Polagevsky with white just tried to blow the youngster away. This was an Olympiad, I think, around about 1982, and everything rebounded. So, yeah, I think, and it finished with a series of fantastic sacrifices where all those pieces that are sitting on the front. Johansson is ready for B5. Now, when you play B5, it may be you're not losing a pawn immediately, but for example, after pawn takes pawn, there could be bishop F1 to win that pawn. The problem is then there could be rook takes knight on C3 and knight takes E4 and all sorts of pieces break out. So there's going to be a D5 or a B5 coming. Maybe not immediately, but at least he wants his opponent to worry about it. And Odenthal, I think, would have nothing like the experience that Johansson has in this position. So, yeah, if black plays B5, there is also this very silly bishop sitting on A3. Now, it can go back to B2 and white can play A3. But, for example, if black succeeds in playing B5, then we can go knight E5 and jump in on C4. And that could also work out quite well. So it's you can see a few holes appearing in white's position, even though white looks to have everything beautifully defended. When the break comes, it might not be easy to cope with. Okay, we should go back to our top game. Remembering Yi Yu is 1 point clear of the field, and something I didn't know until today, he had fairly recently come back from Germany where he won the Munsterland Open. But unfortunately, because he got a forfeit in one game, he could not get an IM nom from that tournament. He only had 8 games played. And the even more unfortunate thing is, not for the prize money, but the forfeit came in the second last round. So they couldn't repair it or anything like that. And it helped him win the tournament, but it wasn't what he wanted at all. So George C. has prepared this line of the advanced French, and well, he's actually caught up on the clock, but part of it was he was 15 minutes late for the game. So we left the game after George had played H4. That was his first think in the game, 5 minutes, and the immediate reply was H5. So both players are going to have to play G3 and G6 sooner or later. A3 played, I'm not sure why. You're inviting knight A5. So A4, why not knight A5 coming? Rook B1, bishop here, G3, knight A5. So I can understand what Yi is doing here, because he doesn't want to play G6 unnecessarily, which would allow white to play bishop G5. Here, if bishop G5 comes, he probably wants to go F6. It may still be that black's king belongs on the queen side. So bishop g5, f6, bishop f4, maybe we castle queen side, king b8, knight b3, that sort of thing. Could still be absolutely okay. Yeah, so White really doesn't want to allow that. Now, the other problem is if we move our knight on f3 to threaten the h pawn, then probably black throws knight b3 in, threatening the d pawn, rather than play g6, although even after g6 we probably have to go knight f3 anyway. So yeah, George C is spending a long time here trying to find a plan. Does the computer have any ideas? Zeros again. Rook e1 is almost totally pointless. Knight e3 is reasonably pointful. Knight h6 is the suggested reply, which I would regard as a serious success for white, because you have covered this, the weak c4 square and you sent that knight back to h6. Now, maybe black will be going f6 and knight f7, but still, it doesn't look ideal. So he's gone here in order to put the bishop on c3, and yet that looks very unstable after rook c8, for example. The bishop on c3 holds everything together, and yet I'd rather the knight on b3 or a knight on c4. So knight b3, bishop c3, or I wonder if he's hoping for bishop b4, swapping the bishops that way. But after bishop takes bishop, I'd have to take over the pawn, which is not ideal at all. And the other problem is it's conceivable that black should choose to swap the light square bishops off now with bishop b5. That might also be okay. So, yeah, even castles queenside might be a move here. So I think Yi is doing quite well, given that he's aligned his opponent had prepared. He's ahead on the clock, and his position's fine. And not only that, Yi Lu has been playing this system and the French his whole career. When he won the Australian Open, he was playing the French. He's never given it up. So even if George prepares for 2, 3, 4 hours this morning to play this particular line, it's highly likely that Yi will be able to adjust to that position and play as you would in play how a French defence player would play it and solve the problems that he's presented with. So that's always the problem with taking someone on in the line they've played all their life, because they do know it better than you, no matter how much you prepare. You have to be pretty lucky to get a line that sets them problems that they can't solve, if they're serious players. So this one looks about equal, but I'd be backing our tournament leader to do well, remembering he's floating down a whole point and a half to play George C, the third seed, second seed against third. So Lee did play queen f3, c6 was the reply, g4, that looks like a George C move. May not be bad here because there is no knight e4 coming, g6. So g5, where will the knight go? Probably e8. I guess d6 is not a bad square. So bishop here, he went there anyway, so there's no g5 or h4 coming, and queen g2. So remembering Tedrick Lee has been the surprise factor of the tournament, seated about 14th, but has done phenomenally well. Just to show you his field, for example, if I can get there. So beat Gary Johansson, beat Gary Lane, so Grandmaster Johansson, International Master Lane, drew with 11-year-old Grant Chakrabarty, and beat the dominator of New South Wales tournaments over the last year and a half, Kishi Bhatta by a scarlet. So, and a draw with Trevor Cow yesterday. So that, yeah, so he's played seeds number 1, 2, 5, 7, and he's playing 6 today. So the only game he lost was against Yi, but anyone can lose to Yi, and have been. So I'm not so sure I'm convinced by White's play. I think White should have gone G5 and then H4 to back up the pawn, and that would have been the real test of Black's play. Now, whether Black would play an F6 plan or a H6 plan, I'm not sure, but White would certainly have some attacking chances. So he's gone G4 and then he's playing a bit quietly. There's a few white pieces that aren't really getting into the game. So even if you go knight E2, knight C2, and knight G3, it's unlikely you'll have a knight H5 or a knight F5. So very calmly, knight G6, just a natural move. Okay, you can't play C5 for quite a while, but what he can do is answer B4 with B5, and then dump his knight on C4 later. So White can't destroy that pawn on D5 by playing B4, B5. So board 3, Trevor Tao was doing nothing much against Chakrabarti. Chakrabarti think here and played Bishop G4, not playing Bishop F5. And now he wants his Bishop F5 when he can get it, so Trevor gets out of the way immediately. G7, he's completely happy to play Queen B3 because then there could be a threat against the D5 pawn. So here it looks like C4 isn't anywhere near as fine because you don't have pieces controlling the B4 square. Swap. We can even play E4, but also we can neutralize B5 by just playing A3 whenever we want. So it's certainly. So the computer is not offering a suggestion, but it feels as if that even bishop takes bishop, queen takes queen, C4 and knight D3, but we don't have enough pieces to cause real problems here. I think it's actually time for Black to keep the queens on somehow. Now, whether you have to do that with Queen E6, giving away the B pawn, but going Rook B8 and taking on B2. Queen E6, of course, it is possible for White to take on E5, but then you take on E2. Oh, then you take on G7. Bishop C4, who knows what's going on? Let's have a look. Queen E6. I don't believe in queen takes pawn because of Rook B8. I may believe in this because there is no Rook B8, but then you'll have to convince me that this doesn't give a big attack. Now, maybe it doesn't, but it looks scary, but the king is going to hide on C2, so I probably don't have enough. So they're going to say, whoa, -5. Oh, Rook B8 now. Okay, because the bishop's come back. Okay, he's got enough. What else can we do? Knight moves. Looks unlikely. Knight moves, we can go Rook E8, and then, you're in trouble because Queen D3 is coming. So is this already winning? Queen D5, Rook D8, Bishop D6. Okay, no, it's going to play like that. But apparently it hangs on. And nothing else hangs on. So Queen E6 makes sense. So White can't go pawn grabbing. So White should go grabbing this way. Bishop takes. And now I was trying to work out this line. Maybe it's fine for White. Probably it's fine for White. You can just castle. You're doing fine. So Bishop E5. I can, of course, just take back. And take, and probably queen takes pawn is possible, and that's not working either. So I don't see any forcing lines for Black, and I don't see an easy way to avoid a queen swap. And the queen swap is highly likely to be about equal. So let's see, bishop takes. Queen takes, pawn takes. Let's take here. Now up to b5, I wouldn't be totally surprised if I could play takes, because maybe it's not a great position for the bishop. And rook d1. But yeah, I'd love to go b4, and when you take it, play c4, but I just can't quite make that work, I suspect. When you take it, I could take on b2 though. So maybe b4 is a threat. Maybe b4 was a threat. Because if I get a pawn on the queen side, I get a2 as well, and some discovered checks, which may not lead to anything, but might be quite good. So slightly better for black, but oh, they're saying after takes. What are they offering? Oh, rook b1. If rook takes pawn, rook d2 might win a piece, unfortunately. So this is working okay. So they're saying you should take back, and then I can believe after rook d2 that black is a little bit worse. So bishop e6 was played. I think it's time for, oh, Trevor did not take queens off. So queen c6 looks possible. And of course, healthier moves look possible as well. Rook d8, something like that. Rook c8. Yeah, so yeah, the big question is, do you want to keep the queens on? If you do, you'll have to find a good square for your queen, which is not so easy. If queen c6, I might actually be able to chase you with bishop b5 or queen b5, so I'm not sure about that. So I think Trevor Tower is okay, but technically, Rank Chakrabarti is simply playing well and has a good view. He hasn't moved up to knight d3. So this is scary for white. On material, white's doing really well. But if normally two pieces beat a rook and pawn, or at least are better against a rook and pawn. But black has kept some active pieces, and the bishop on g2 is a little bit irrelevant at the moment. And even the knight on d2 is not stable. It's not as if white's played b3 and knight c4, and if you did, we'd take that b3 pawn. So yeah, but b3 is certainly interesting. And then you wonder how black is going to follow up. Oh, he's going to play knight c1 perhaps and just take that pawn. So okay, it's that's certainly possible. And he can't play bishop a7 because the knight hangs. So yeah, this, as I mentioned, yeah, you go back to here, and or even a little earlier, they've both got more or less the same time they started with. Knight b3 was the first big thing, and then suddenly Cannon started thinking and thinking and thinking. So it does seem as if Tascalin's preparation went a bit more deeply. So queen e2. So your knight on d2 is pinned now, whether that's relevant or not. I'm really tempted by rook fd8 because I want to play that anyway, but I'm wondering about knight takes b2. Looks healthy. And do we have anything else? I don't want to play b3 too early, but I will want to play it fairly soon. So after queen e2, we do have knight c1 anyway to knock the queen away, but maybe that queen will then go to h5. So I don't really want to encourage that. Because if my knight's not on d3, then after queen h5, if I go king g7, bishop takes pawn is a perpetual, and bishop d4 is also annoying. So why didn't he go queen h5? It's the next. Oh no, he's going queen h5. Sorry, he was on f1. So queen h5 is the idea. And he's really easy to step into a pin for it. And they like this for white. They think rook fd8 was healthier and better. What's the difference after queen e2? Knight c4. and the pin is pretty bad. Okay, so 93 may have been an inaccuracy, and 22 is super annoying. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. Back to our top board game, because George C against Yi-Lu is not quite the last big test for Yi-Lu, but it's certainly one, if he survives, you really would back him to win the tournament. This was a period 2 years ago where Rishi Sardana just took off, just a run of consecutive wins that ultimately left him with a 2-point margin. So, and yeah, he was 2 points ahead, I think, with 2 rounds to play. And it's not completely impossible that something like that could happen here. So it does depend how many draws are going to happen on the next few boards. But if that's a threat, you're going to have to take back with the queen, because if you take with the pawn, knight A1 is going to win a pawn. So that's one thing Black has to worry about. Right now, you can't take on D4. You can go back to A5 if you want, but the knight on D2 covers things quite well. Black would love to get a queen into the king side, because then you could play things like knight takes H4 and queen H3, or bishop H4 and queen H3, or just G5 and open things up. And yeah, I'm beginning to wonder, is G5 going to be really annoying? So let's have a look. G5. Let's say we take. I can either play H4 or I can take on G5. Let's do the obvious one. Okay. And now you can't play knight A1 because we take on D2, so you have to take here. And now what I really want to do is take with the pawn and sacrifice a pawn and get through on the other side of the board. But exactly how to do it, I'm not so sure. Let's see. Let's play H4. G4. H3. All right, let's take that. And now all we have to do is get our queen on B5 over to G2. And that probably involves cylindrical chess, where the A file is connected to the H file. But it's probably not working because the white king is completely safe on H1. Black has no pieces that control H1. So that's not working. It still feels promising, but nothing deadly. So after 92, queen D3 doesn't look good enough. Yeah. So is there an attacking plan? No. Oh, G5. They like it. You play G6. What? G5. Takes. Knight takes, pawn takes. Oh, knight takes, pawn takes. Knight A1. Rook G8. Okay, if you take with the queen, you're giving yourself the chance to invade on the king side, I think. Queen D3, Queen D1, and Queen E4. So you can play Rook E1, Bishop E3. I was only looking at Knight G3 actually. But okay, something on E3, and it's -9. So there are some attacking chances over there, but G6 trying to be solid. Now after knight takes, he's going to have to take with the queen. And yeah, this doesn't feel like it's going to go in white's favour at all. I don't know. Do we want to play knight E3 here? There's a danger that there's a bishop takes A3 when you're not looking. So he just goes queen D2. He's going to protect the D4 pawn a bit more. He might play bishop D4 sometime. He's covering G5, and the black queen is not headed to the king side yet. So I would say again, this is a 0-0-0 position. No, they still say G5. Wow. He didn't play it last time, so the chances that he plays it again are not that high. What? Really? Okay, I don't want to play F4 because knight G3 gets the knight to E4, and that will. But there are 4 rounds to go. There is no way that you can just coast to victory in the tournament with 4 draws. So I really think that we could play. So King G2 play. Yeah, Bishop E4 is coming. We can always put a rook on C1. Now maybe Black's going to go rook FC8 and rook C4 or something like that, and put a bit of pressure there, but it doesn't seem scary. Sure, White can't actually do anything on the king side, but I don't think Black is doing much on the other side of the board either. I can't believe that F6 would be a good plan. Yeah, rook FC8. So Yu is just playing natural moves, saying maybe I'm slightly better here, and that's okay by me. I'm not going to risk anything. And the computer says he is slightly better. Yeah, 93 is the sort of moves that I reckon could easily lead to a draw, but so let's see, 93. Knight takes, queen takes, bishop A3, pawn takes, queen takes. Let's just take on B7, or yeah, let's just take on B7. So yeah, no doubt Black is in no danger here, but you've got to be a little bit careful about your F7 pawn. So I don't think there's any advantage either. So bishop A3 is of course a bit early, but White's bishop doesn't have to stay on C3 at all. So Black is better, but yeah, the advantage is coming down. But great position to have if you're the tournament leader. I just reckon not playing sharply when you have a chance is not so clever. So Yu, who really hasn't had a great year. He has played a lot, but lots of placings. For example, he got to 5 out of 5 by beating George C in the Christmas special in Redcliffe only a week or so ago, lost in the last round. Came 3rd at the Gold Coast Open, 3rd at the Canterbury Summer Swiss in Melbourne. The big tournament to Toowoomba, he only came 6th. So really nothing outstanding until the Munsterland Open, of course, which very few people knew about because the Munsters are not very famous in Australia, and so it wasn't a super tournament. A lot of tournaments just don't get reported much. Trevor Tao seems to have liquidated a lot. The computer is saying White is better. This could be a lot better after Bishop F3, but I guess we go Rook D8 and play a rook ending. Let's see how they got there. When are the queens coming off? Queen's off. Okay. So White is definitely better here. The computer says only 0.1, but it's more than that because Black's 2 pawns are only worth 1. So in a way, White has an extra isolated deep pawn. Now the move I would want to play is bishop here. The move I would want to play is bishop here. Not so much because I want to get the B7 pawn, because I want you to worry about it and play maybe bishop D5. And here, White has excellent winning chances. Black can play rook B5. We're just going to go rook D2. We bring the king up. Now Black's king can turn up on D6. If there were no queenside pawns at all, this is very, very difficult. And of course, the computer is saying objectively a draw, but that's not really relevant. It's whether it's difficult or not. If you go back to the previous round, let's go round 7, just as an example. Come on, round 7. back here. This game reached a rook ending. And in fact, by the way, to his credit, Sidarth actually declined a draw here and played for a win. But here, well, he could take on b2, it still is a draw, but white is slightly better. And now, after rook a1, he offered a draw, but it's too late because Johansson is getting a pawn up rook ending, and now they get 4 against 3. So if you put this on the computer, it'll be all zeros. It'll be all zeros, move after move after move. But of course, this is extremely difficult for black to defend. So all zeros doesn't tell you anything much. It just tells you that you have reached an ending which Magnus Carlsen lost against Levon Aronian. Therefore, lots of people could lose it. White's making progress. It's when the pawns get to f4 and e5 that you start to worry. Okay, and around here, I think Magnus chose a plan of hanging on to the back of the back pawn, so rook b4, and that's okay. But yeah, there was some idea after king g5 of playing f6. Oh no, that doesn't work here. f6 check. So he went rook c7, but maybe rook b1 is better, so that king g5 isn't possible. Because at some point, in order to protect the king, white will have to pull the rook back, and then move the king, and then play f5, which is very difficult to do. And when that happens, Carlsen's f6 is possible, but of course, Carlsen couldn't defend the rook and pawn against rook ending, which was drawn. So it didn't help him. So there are so many ways this can go wrong. King g5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. They say f6 check is a draw. I don't think there are a lot of players who would play that, but apparently having 2 pawns is no better than 1. Suddenly, +5. You play one relatively obvious move, but check first, and if you go king e6, then f5 is winning. And that's the key. King takes pawn, you give a check on e7, and then you go king f6. You don't even need to take the f7 pawn immediately, and that is a technically winning ending. He went back with the king, and now he'd like to go rook c6, but unfortunately now his king's in a mating net. And we can go check. Oh, they say king h6 is a mating net. Yeah, well, that looks pretty good too. Rook here, and it'll be e6, takes, and this is the technically winning ending. You're threatening rook g7, king f8, rook h7, and if the king goes back, f7 wins the rook. So they say it's mating 15, I'd rather just win the rook. He went one check, king f6. He resigned 2 minutes after the computer was saying it was 0, 0, 0. It was incredibly easy to lose. As I say, Carlsen's lost it. So in these sort of endings where one side has the advantage and the other one can draw, that's where the computer is decidedly misleading. That's why, for example, when Wesley So resigned his game in the World Cup in what the computer said was a drawn position, it actually still needed really clever defense to hold the draw, especially against the best play by white. And when Wesley resigned, he had 13 seconds left. So the chances that he was going to hold were really quite remote, but it did knock him out of the World Cup in round 2. Yes?
Side note, we have this portfolio of on that. So when you actually catch before these going seconds,
We do what, sorry?
we just portfolio on that. We forfeit.
Oh, really?
So it's actually
Oh, not in the championship. Oh, what a pity. That would have been a real scam.
we did do this properly.
Okay, so how did you catch them? How did you catch them, Winston? Oh, just a random check.
We were working out what's this whole thing.
And what, did it have a chess program on it?
But it's all a phone, so.
Oh, so a phone forfeit in the reserves today. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a point.
Oh, so Mark Stokes is now celebrating. So were you playing a junior or just a normal person? A lot of these in Australia, we have had people getting away with, pretty rare, and it's even rarer to get caught with it. So we've had cases at the Dover Cup and at the Australian Schools Championship where players have had a phone and the arbiters didn't catch them, and we only found out later. But the more serious cheating is usually more sophisticated than that. I'd be more worried if someone had a nanotechnology earpiece and there was no delay on the tournament broadcast. But fortunately, there is a 15-minute delay on the tournament broadcast, so it should be difficult to do. And of course, a lot of overseas tournaments now have it. Australia was probably the first to have almost all their major tournaments have a delay, and it was usually half an hour. And that was a result of a case that was never proven, but was very suspicious. And the delay did cause that player to play a lot worse, so the suspicion was probably justified. And also the university professor that had that player as a student did confirm that the student had access to that sort of equipment. So the professor, the person who ran the course, was in fact an ex-chess player from India who knew exactly what was possible and what wasn't, and he definitely didn't want his students involved in that sort of thing, and he also asked for a heads up if the player was about to get busted, because the uni wanted some sort of warning of it, which I can understand as well. So, okay, this is our top board again, and that king has gone to h3, and as recommended in Roger's Practical Endgame Guide, that's where you want to put the king when they're from the knight, because it's 2 squares diagonally from the knight, and it can't hurt you. Now, whether he really wants to go f3 and g4 here, does he really want to go f3 and g4 here? No. George C is relying on the fact that there is no way through on the queen side, and therefore he can turn his attention to the king side. Now that's possible, but if you're going to go f3 and g4 while we're doubling on the c file, we're going to sacrifice an exchange on c3 and absolutely kill you. So the more you expose your king, the harder it's going to be to defend on the queen side. So black should just double, and rook takes c3 could be a serious move at some point. It might be that there might be a rook b1 defense against it, but even that I'm not sure about. So it's just time to play rook c7 and double. The computer wants rook c4, probably pretty similar. Maybe rook c4 stops bishop b4 and knight b4 ideas, or knight b4 ideas rather, but I'm not sure he actually has these ideas. Yeah, they're not a threat at all. So rook c4, you could still play knight e3 if you want to, but clearly that's not his intention, and the computer is saying black is slightly better. Do you have anything to do though? It's hard to say. So board 2 is a bit more exciting. That's not very clever. Reconnecting. So black's king has decided to sit on d7, or maybe even b8, or maybe even a6, because if the